My adult sister ruined my birthday by going into baby mode and getting social services worried about her mental health. I'm 16 years old. My mother is 52. My sister Jade is 27, my other sister Lola is 25, my brother Luca is 20, my father is 55, my friend is 17, and my brother-in-law is 27. So, yesterday was my birthday. The day started fine, nothing out of the ordinary, but when dinner time came, everything fell apart. In my family, the tradition is that the birthday person chooses where to eat and who goes. I had been looking forward to this because I thought that, for once, I could choose who I spent the evening with. My plan was to keep it simple, just Jade, my brother-in-law, my friend, and me. That was supposed to be it. But things didn't go as planned. My brother-in-law was running late, and before I knew it, my mother decided she was joining. I was already annoyed with her because she kept saying I was wasting my friend's time, but I tried not to let it ruin my day. My friend was understanding when I explained and told me not to worry. When we were about to leave, my mother stopped me at the door and asked, "Aren't you going to invite the others?" I didn't want to explain why I preferred Lola not to come, so I gave in. Suddenly, the small, intimate dinner I'd planned turned into a full family outing, except for my father. I swallowed my irritation because it was my birthday, but almost immediately, things got worse. Jade and Lola started fighting, talking trash about each other. It escalated quickly, and soon Lola was crying, running to her room, whining in a baby voice that nobody loved her and that she'd be better off dead. Luca and my mother went to console her, and at that point I just wanted the night to be over. We finally made it to the restaurant, sat down, and it happened again. Lola started crying and repeating the same dramatic lines about how we hated her and how she'd be better off dead. Everyone immediately shifted their attention to treating her like a baby. She has a fetish for acting like a baby. I couldn't take it anymore. I was completely furious with my family for ruining my day. By the time we left, I had calmed down a little because I had to go pick up my cake. No one thought to buy me one beforehand. I bought my cake, brought it home, and just when I was about to salvage what was left of my day, Lola started again. But by then I was out of patience. I told her to control herself and stop ruining another one of my birthdays by making it about her. She stormed off in anger. When I finally came out of the bathroom after crying, I told my sisters and my mother exactly how I felt, that I was incredibly disappointed and sad that I couldn't have a single day that was about me, and that they always behaved perfectly fine on everyone else's birthdays but not on mine. Lola started crying again, and immediately everyone blamed me, saying it wasn't their fault. I finally exploded, yelling, "You all ruined my birthday. Do you want a cookie or something?" That offended everyone. Lola began telling everyone that I hated her and wanted her to die. Let me explain why I feel the way I do, because I know that on the surface it might seem like I'm being cold or cruel for not wanting my family around. The truth is, I didn't want Lola there for reasons far beyond silly fights. Every time I choose a restaurant, she complains, always with that baby voice. She has no allergies or health issues, she's just extremely picky and has this weird fetish her ex liked. To make matters worse, her ex tried grooming me and Lola completely minimized it. That same ex ended up grooming a 16-year-old girl, and as far as I know, others too. I think that's when she developed the age play behavior. She acts like a baby especially when she isn't the center of attention, tantrums, baby talk, crying, everything. She does it around everyone, whether we like it or not, and it makes people very uncomfortable. That's why I mentioned the fetish, and I'm sorry if that offends anyone or if I'm misunderstanding it. I also didn't want my mother there because she always finds something to complain about when we go out. It doesn't matter if it's the food, the decor, the people in the restaurant, usually me, or anything else. She's also extremely racist and says hurtful things to my brother-in-law and my friend. As for my father, he wasn't there because he works late, but even when he is home, he never shows up to anything, so his presence doesn't make a difference. I'm pretty sure he doesn't enjoy these events, he thinks they're a waste of time and he can't stand his daughter acting the way she does. He openly favors the son. He's sexist and misogynistic and has no table manners. He burps or farts at the table, sometimes even in my face while I'm eating, and then calls me soft for not liking it. He had hoped that the youngest child, me, would be a boy to balance things out, but here I am, not enjoying his disgusting contests during meals. Once, when I was 12, I came home exhausted after school and collapsed on my bed. He burst in, yelled at me for being lazy, threatened me with violence unless I got up to cook for him, and then insulted my food. When people say we're a dysfunctional family, trust me, they have no idea. The only reason I'm here is because my father probably thought my mother had fixed herself after having a boy. Honestly, I don't think my mother should have ever married my father, but how they met is another story. They plan to divorce when I graduate, but I wish it had happened sooner. So no, I don't think it's too much to ask for one day to be about me. And I really needed to get all of this out so people understand why I finally snapped. Jade came because she's the sister I get along with best. The one who truly drives me crazy is Lola, who can't stop body shaming me. According to her, I need to gain weight or my clothes will fall off. She criticizes my appearance, my hair, my weight, my face, basically anything she can find. If I ever confront her for being cruel, or if I get sad and cry, suddenly she's the one crying, and then Mom shows up furious with me, accusing me of hurting her. Lola is convinced I want to steal her boyfriends. I can't even describe how disgusting that is. She can keep them, I definitely don't want them. Once, right after I finished working out, she started accusing me of trying to show off in front of her boyfriend. I was 15 at the time, wearing a normal tank top and sweatpants, yet she said I was dressed inappropriately and trying to get his attention by dressing like a slut. I couldn't believe it. Being around Luca is like listening to nails on a chalkboard. He's very similar to my father in many ways. He complains about everyone, throws insults, especially at the women in our family, and acts like he's better than all of us. My friend wanted to take me out to dinner at a restaurant he knows I like, but Mom refused to let me go. Apparently, in her mind, I can't be trusted because she thinks I'm planning to sleep with him or something, which is disgusting because he's my friend. That was my birthday, a terrible day. I just need to get this out of my system and see if I can sleep, because thinking about all of this only makes me feel worse, and I can't close my eyes. Update. You'd think the worst had already happened on my birthday, but the universe had more crappy gifts for me the next day. The next morning, someone knocked on the door and my mother opened it. 2 officers and a paramedic were on the porch asking for Lola. Someone at the restaurant had requested a wellness check because of her "better off dead" comments. My mother instantly switched into hostess mode, all sweet and fake calm, saying everything was fine and that it had only been a bit of sisterly drama. But they insisted they needed to see Lola and talk to her alone. I didn't mention this in my previous post, but Lola still lives with my parents because she is literally a baby. Luca does too. Jade lives with my brother-in-law even though they aren't married. My mother hates that. My father couldn't care less as long as fewer women live under his roof. I don't know how he hasn't thrown Lola out. Maybe he pities her. But nothing in my family is normal, that I can guarantee. Lola came out of her room wearing a sweatshirt and a pacifier clip she always carries everywhere. When they asked her whether she had said she wanted to die, she used her baby voice and said, "Nobody loves me, so what's the point?" It was like pouring gasoline on a fire. They came to check if her mental state was bad, but discovered it was much worse. The paramedic was gentle but firm while explaining that this was an involuntary admission, and that when you say certain things in public, people have to take you seriously. My mother immediately started yelling at me, "Are you happy now? Look what your birthday caused." Luca stepped in and told her to shut up because the police were literally standing there. They took Lola for evaluation. She cried and clung to my mother, staring at me as if I had done this to her. I watched as they put her into the ambulance while neighborhood curtains moved, everyone peeking to gossip. As soon as the doors closed, my mother turned to me and called me a monster. She said I had used Lola's mental health as a weapon to get attention. I told her I hadn't called anyone, and that saying those things in the middle of a restaurant isn't normal. In fact, she shouldn't be saying that anywhere. My friend came to pick me up after I told him what was happening. His mom was in the passenger seat wearing a robe, slippers, and her hair in a messy bun. When my mother stormed out, accusing my friend of playing knight in shining armor just to have sex with me, my friend's mom said, "We're taking her to stay at our house for a few days. She'll sleep in a separate room and nothing your rotten mind is imagining is going to happen." She handed my mother a card with her personal number but told her not to use it unless she planned on speaking calmly. My mother threatened to call the police, but my friend's mom replied that she wouldn't like having the police show up twice in the same day. What will the neighbors think? I slept on their couch with a clean blanket that smelled like fabric softener, and next to the family cat, because apparently the living room is his spot to relax and I was his guest. I didn't mind, it was much better than sleeping anywhere near the family I was born into. At least the cat doesn't talk or complain. I woke up to a mini cupcake on a small plate with a candle. My friend's mom had asked him what flavor I liked and sent him to the store at 6 in the morning, almost before school. My birthday had already passed, but at least I had something to make up for it. My phone, however, was a war zone. My mother flooded the family chat with photos of the psychiatric wristband, saying her poor daughter had been admitted against her will. Jade replied telling her to stop blaming me, because it was her fault for enabling Lola's literal baby behavior. Luca called me a snake and said I was dead to him. I don't think he actually cares about Lola, but missing an opportunity to insult me wouldn't be like him. My father said absolutely nothing, neither in the family chat nor privately. I guess he must be thrilled that in one shot he got rid of 2 daughters. I can practically hear him, "Got rid of the crazy one and the little one works for me." My brother-in-law, of all people, along with Jade, was one of the few who acted like a normal human being. He messaged asking how I was and whether I needed anything. I told him I needed some things from home. He came during his lunch break, grabbed my stuff, and dropped it off at my friend's house. He was alone, yes, but that's normal, he works closer to here than my sister does. She would need the whole lunch hour just for the drive. Lola was discharged later that afternoon with a referral to outpatient therapy. She passed the psychiatric evaluations, but from what I know, they kept her as long as the law allows. They were probably hesitant to release someone so unstable back into the world. Honestly, they should have admitted the rest of my family too, but the psych ward must be at capacity. My mother called around dinner time that day to say my drama now had government people sticking their noses into our business. A social worker had already left a message on the home phone asking to speak with the adults and the minors in the house because of the police report. My mother said I had to come back and play happy family, and that if I opened my mouth to anyone, she would make sure I regretted it. I asked her what she planned to do about the nosy neighbors or the people at the restaurant, because she had a long list of people who would have to regret it. In the end, I told her that if she wanted the social worker to talk to me, she'd have to send her to my friend's house. My friend's mom asked if I wanted her to be there when the social worker arrived. She also asked what I wanted to do about school, because missing another day would tank my chemistry grade. She drove me to school in the morning and waited outside the counselor's office while I explained why I looked like I hadn't slept in a week. The counselor already knew, apparently the wellness check had somehow made its way onto the school's radar, and she asked me if I felt safe going back to class that day. My father finally showed up in person that evening. He walked up the driveway of my friend's house as if it were his own and demanded I get in the car. My friend's mom stepped between us and said I wasn't going anywhere I didn't want to go. He did that smile he always does right before turning cruel and accused her of interfering with his parenting. She told him to call the social worker, because she wasn't going to let him cause a scene in front of her hydrangeas. My father then focused on me and ordered me to get in the car. I told him I wasn't going. He called me a useless brat, turned around, and threw out an "you'll regret this," which is his favorite threat. I'm writing this from the guest room, because my friend's mom decided I needed something more long-term than the couch. I don't know where all of this is going, but the thought of possibly having to go back to my parents' house gives me anxiety. Update 2. The social worker has a name, the kind that kicks the backsides of parenting attempts, and a voice perfectly suited for situations like this. Warm enough to work with kids and teens, but capable of turning sharp when dealing with parents. She showed up at my friend's house at 8 a.m. with a notebook and asked if we could sit at the dining table. My friend's mom served her coffee and made tea for me, then stayed nearby on purpose in case I needed her. We had arranged beforehand that it would be okay. The social worker looked at me and asked, "Do you want to be here?" I told her, "Not if I'm being a burden, but I don't want to go back to my parents' house." My friend's mom, who had heard everything, stepped in and said I wasn't a burden at all and that they loved having me in their home. The social worker asked a few more questions and explained what would happen. For 2 weeks, I stay here. No surprise pickups. If my parents want to see me, they go through her. I'm allowed to say no to anything I don't want. She also asked whether I needed birth certificates or documents, and I said they were probably at my parents' house. She had already been to my house. My mother played the role of the loving, concerned parent so perfectly that the social worker began to grow suspicious. You can't fool someone who earns their living dealing with this every single day. She asked about my father and whether he would get physical if told no. I said that he sometimes gets very close to that, and that he doesn't think no is a word meant for him. She nodded like it fit the picture she was already forming in her mind, then handed me her card with her number. Later at school, the administration called me in during second period. The social worker was in a meeting room with the principal and the school officer when my mother and father walked in. My mother wore her church cardigan, the one she uses when she wants to look respectable. My father's jaw was already tightening like he was grinding metal bolts. The social worker had them sit and said, "We have a plan," sliding a paper across the table. My father snapped, "I didn't sign anything," and the social worker replied, "You don't have to. We can allow your daughter to stay somewhere else if we have concerns." He did his toothless smirk and said, "She's a child," and the social worker answered, "And I'm the state." My mother tried her usual nonsense, "She's running off with that boy." Then she threw in the word pregnant, and the principal's eyebrows nearly launched themselves out the back of her head. The social worker asked me if it was true. I said no, because it wasn't. She said, "All right," and looked back at my mother. "False accusations are documented, ma'am." My mother looked like she wanted to follow the principal's eyebrows to whatever afterlife they had escaped to. My father leaned forward with both hands on the table. The school officer rested his hand on his belt, not exactly pulling anything out, but making sure my father remembered he was there. The social worker said, "You may have supervised contact in a public place this weekend, if she agrees. She will not be removed from school or from the residence of your daughter's friend's mother." I said right then, "I don't want to." I don't know what they discussed afterward, because I had to get back to class. I had a surprise chemistry test and I was already late. I scored a 76 and almost cried because I hadn't opened a book in days. I also have a ton of homework piling up. Later that day, I met Jade at the park. She left work a little early to sit with me and talk. We bought coffee and something to eat and sat on one of the benches. She said she wanted to tell me something important and had hoped we'd be alone so she could ask me. She wanted to know how I felt staying at my friend's house and with his mother. And she asked whether I would be okay with her requesting custody of me until I could live on my own. She hadn't talked to the social worker about it yet because she wanted to ask me first. I didn't know what to say, because I felt very comfortable at my friend's house. He's my friend, and his mother treats me incredibly well. But I also knew that, as a guest, I'd eventually start to overstay my welcome, and I couldn't stay there forever. I also didn't know if I would become a burden to my sister and her boyfriend. Still, they were the ones who had behaved the most decently out of my entire family. As I mentioned before, my sister is fine, and that's why I invited her to my birthday. But we don't have a very close relationship because of the age difference, although one thing we do share is our hatred for Lola and her baby fetish. And also the way Luca and our father treat us. I don't even need to mention our mother. In the end, I said I would think about it. I went back to my friend's house and watched a movie that didn't stick in my brain at all because my mind was mush. I didn't talk to them about anything that was happening. I wanted to process it first, even though I knew I was procrastinating. That's why the movie. I wanted one night, just a few hours, to think about something other than all this drama. Though, from the little I remember, the movie wasn't very successful at distracting me. The next morning, I spent the entire day thinking about my sister's proposal, and I started leaning toward saying yes. Nothing was certain yet, because my parents could still fight this, but at least I wanted to sit down and talk with my friend and his mother so they would know what was going on. Starting the conversation was hard, because deep down I had this idea that I was being ungrateful to them, even though part of the reason I was considering moving was because I knew I was overstaying here. I even started crying when I talked to them, because I felt so much pressure in my chest with everything going on, so many decisions to make and too many emotions happening all at once in such a short period of time. My friend's mother, who I think either had a difficult childhood or, in another life, ended up with my parents as hers, was the most understanding person in the world. She reassured me, saying it was my decision, but that she was willing to let me stay for as long as I needed. If you think I'm lucky because I have two good places to stay, it's because you don't know how hard this decision actually is. I was already leaning toward moving in with my sister, but at this point I didn't know what to do. I'd been living here for a while and felt comfortable. I didn't know what things would be like at my sister's house, probably not as bad as with my parents, but still unknown. So I also wanted to know what you all thought about this, whether I should accept my sister's offer or my friend's mother's. My thought process is that I'm fine here, but she's a single mother doing the best she can with two teenagers, and it feels unfair to add my existence to her responsibilities. It's not just having another almost adult living under her roof, it's all the paperwork she would have to complete for me to stay here legally. But on the other hand, there's my sister, with whom I don't have a close relationship, but whose boyfriend seems like a good person, and my sister herself has decided to take this step forward. That's why I lean more toward that option. At the end of the day, I feel like I'll be a burden to everyone, so there are no good decisions here. I'm just trying to figure out which choice is the least bad for the people around me. And that's what's keeping me stuck in this limbo. We're getting close to the 2-week deadline set by the social worker, and I think I should have an answer before then. No one has pressured me, but I can hear the ticking clock in my head. Maybe those of you reading this from the outside, without all my emotional baggage, can give me advice, an opinion, anything. Edit, my brother-in-law is nothing like Lola's boyfriend. I can tell the difference between someone behaving inappropriately and someone who isn't. My brother-in-law is genuinely a good person who's only trying to help and has no hidden intentions. I'd appreciate it if some of you would take those ideas out of your heads. Not all the older men in my life have done things like that, just one, who was messed up enough to date my sister Lola. Actualization trace. I had to make a fairly quick decision because I felt like I was making the people who cared about me wait. And also because I was afraid of having to return to my parents' house. My decision was to move in with my sister. It was the option I'd been leaning toward, and it was the most sensible choice, considering I have a blood connection with her. When it came down to it, it was much simpler for my sister than for my friend's mother. One good thing from all of this is that my friend and his mother are still part of my life, even though I'm not living there. Hi. I'm visiting and spending a lot of time at my sister's house. I'm in a trial period to see how I adapt to the dynamic there, but honestly, I don't need it, because I feel pretty comfortable living there. It's a little farther from my school, but not as far as my sister's job, so my brother-in-law drives me to school in the morning, and in the afternoon I go back with my friend's mother. We've also been doing sister activities on weekends or some afternoons, like going to the movies, and this time, I promise I'll actually pay attention to the entire film. At the hearing for my sister's temporary custody, I had to see my mother and my brother there. I even passed close enough to my mother to feel her hippopotamus breath. Not a pleasant experience. Standing in front of a judge and being asked where I wanted to live was surreal, but with the testimony of the social worker, my sister, and my friend's mother, the decision was simple for the judge. I feel happy to have a normal teenage life now, so much so that I've already started thinking about my next birthday, even though it's months away. My guest list will be my sister, my brother-in-law, my friend, and his mom. No nasty mothers, no sisters acting like babies, no uncontrollable crying fits or tantrums. Thank you very much. I appreciate that my other sister didn't go to the hearing, because that would have turned the courtroom into a nursery full of wailing infants. With this, my story and my posts here come to an end. I just wanted to mention that in case you don't see me responding anymore. I plan to do so for a few days until I log out of this account, and that will be it. Actualization 4. Today my friend and I were talking about these posts from a few days ago, after what was basically my real birthday celebration. That's why I logged into my account again, only to find messages and comments asking for an update. The funny thing is that I didn't know much about my parents or the rest of my siblings until I started looking into things to update you all. My sister knew a few things, but she thought it would be better if I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't want to know either, but if I was going to write something better than I'm fine thumbs up, it was necessary. I celebrated my birthday, and the guest list from my previous post stayed the same, only expanded by including my friend's girlfriend, who's basically my friend now too, and another friend I made at school. The rest stayed the same: my sister, her fiancé, my friend, and my friend's mother. We had dinner at a restaurant I liked and ate cake, nothing dramatic, just the normal way you celebrate with people who aren't auditioning for a circus. Everyone in my family has their own update. For example, my sister Jade, she's engaged and will have her wedding sometime next year. That's the happy update from my family, because the rest is just bad news. But don't worry, it's only bad news for them. For everyone else who doesn't act like a baby or enable one, these updates will sound lovely. Lola, the baby, it's no coincidence that I chose that name. She actually resembles the character, including the gap in her front teeth that makes her look like the baby from the Loud House. Well, the real Lola is missing some teeth, but I think they share a lot in common, though my sister is more unbearable. She is currently institutionalized in a psychiatric facility after my father found her with a man around 50, or at least he looked that age. She was wearing diapers, and I'll leave the rest to your imagination because it was pretty disgusting. She was admitted because the professional treating her recommended it. She wasn't making progress in her treatment and received the diagnosis that she wasn't fully aware of everything she was doing, like she lived in a fantasy where she truly believed she was a baby, not an adult pretending to be one with twisted behaviors. Then there's Luca. He enlisted in the Air Force and left home. Out of all my siblings, he's the one I know the least about. I don't know if he was accepted or not, only that he moved to the city where the evaluations were being held, and after that we lost track of him. I think my father might know where he is or what he's doing, but honestly, who cares? As for my parents, they're divorced now, and yes, it's more shocking than what happened with Lola. My father discovered that my mother was cheating on him with one of Lola's exes, not the one who had shown interest in me, but another loser who dated an adult woman acting like a baby. Their marriage was no fairy tale, but the infidelity was the final nail in the coffin. After that, my father decided to get DNA tests for all the kids except me. In a way, he contacted Jade and asked both of us to get tested. Jade told him she wasn't going to ask me anything and she wasn't going to get tested either. She basically didn't care. She didn't need to ask me, because without a court order, I'm still under her custody. But I'll say this, I agree with her: my father can go screw himself. I'm not getting a DNA test with that man. He kept insisting to Jade, but after the first no, she didn't care anymore. We don't know the results of the tests for the rest of our siblings, and we don't want to. We're not interested in our parents or our siblings. Their problems are not ours. The only thing we do know, and not because we wanted to, is that the man who was caught with my sister Lola wrote to my mother. He wanted to know if she had those same fetishes and said he was open to any possibility. We don't know my mother's response, but unfortunately, we saw those chats and screenshots my sister received. If this doesn't get even more insane, it's only because we're scratching the surface of my family. If we were still in contact, I'm sure we'd uncover much worse. To be completely honest, I prefer to be less nosy. This is where I say goodbye. Maybe in a year I'll log in again, or maybe I never will. I hope the latter. I don't want to dig into this family anymore.